Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Restrictions in the state's northwest will be lifted from Monday, allowing businesses and schools to reopen. The changes will bring the region in line with the rest of the state, with rules on people's movements still enforced.
The news Tasmanians have been hoping to hear.
The outbreak in the northwest is now largely under control.
The region now ready for tough restrictions to be eased.
On Monday the 4th of May, the businesses and services that were impacted by those additional restrictions can reopen and that workers and staff will be able to return to work.
Welcome news for local businesses that were unable to trade and couldn't go online.
The only saving grace we've got that we can actually reopen and rebuild the business, because the cost to all retailers on the northwest coast would have been dramatic. We had no business come through, basically.
While students across the state have been adapting to learning largely online, schools throughout the northwest have been closed. But from Monday, they will also reopen.
I walked past a little girl today outside, and she's not from my school, but I said, "Oh, you'll be pleased to hear school's going back," and she was so excited.
Although restrictions in the northwest will be eased, people are still required to stay at home and should limit their movement out of the region.
This will only be the lifting of the additional restrictions. The statewide restrictions that are in place in terms of personal movement, the operation of certain businesses will still apply.
Measures that will hopefully keep this sinking ship afloat. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
In the wake of findings into the northwest coronavirus outbreak, regional doctors are pleading not to be forgotten as they too remain on the front line of the crisis. They're concerned smaller hospitals are more at risk, saying rural staff need to be trained to the same standard as their city colleagues.
Tasmania's district hospitals scattered right across the state, and while the coronavirus spotlight has been on major facilities, rural doctors say smaller facilities also face risk.
You might not be just working in emergency as you would be in the LGH. You're working across several areas, and that's where, if people are turning up sick there, it's just going to be a disaster.
An investigation handed down yesterday into the northwest outbreak, recommending implementing training for PPE and changes to staff meetings and patients moving between facilities. Now, rural doctors are demanding equality in coronavirus preparation.
If we have to resuscitate a patient in a critical incident, we need to ensure that staff are adequately protected with things like face shields, viral filters and so on.
And we want to ensure, no matter where you are delivering care around Tasmania, that you have the PPE but you also feel confident to be able to use it.
The government already implementing several changes, but admitting minimising staff movement between hospitals will be tough.
It is a challenge because we have a lot of staff that work across different sites of the public system, the private system and also aged care.
Investigations are now underway into a 13th coronavirus death overnight, an 86-year-old woman at the Mersey Community Hospital.
That has identified a number of staff contacts of this lady and has furloughed them from work to prevent any ongoing transmission, and they'll be continuing the contact tracing.
But with the northwest outbreak being controlled, Australia's Chief Medical Officer has revealed it's likely Tasmania's effective coronavirus reproduction rate is now below 1. That benchmark meaning the virus spread is slowing. For each case, less than one other person is infected.
They have so expertly brought the northwest Tasmania outbreak under control.
By the latest figures, Tasmania has 68 active cases. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
State Parliament has passed its next suite of emergency coronavirus laws aimed at keeping Tasmanians safe. The new legislation means police officers can now issue on-the-spot fines for individuals and businesses caught flouting restrictions. It's also added extra sitting days next week to debate rules around tenancies and leases.
I want to work with the other parties in the House, and I think largely they want to work with me because we recognise that this is about managing a pandemic and doing what we can to deal with a very, very difficult situation.
It's important that we have time to consider these things so that the questions that are coming forward from the community, from the business community, from others who've got an interest in how legislation is made can be asked and answered.
Parliament will resume on Wednesday. Ambulance Tasmania has called in some aerial support with a new high-tech helicopter arriving in the state. It can carry critically sick patients quicker and further without refuelling, boosting our frontline services amid the pandemic.
It's not often you see an ambulance hovering above the road. Blades spinning and jetting off into the sky. This is the latest machine joining Ambulance Tasmania's fleet. The Bell 412 increasing the state's emergency aircraft to 4, with additional space on board to carry 2 critical care level patients at the same time and up to 5 crew members. In action this week, testing out the Royal Hobart Hospital's new landing pad. It's capable of flying faster, lifting heavier loads and promising a longer range before needing to refuel, from Tasmania to Victoria if needed, as well as a return trip from Hobart to the North West Regional Hospital, the epicentre of the region's outbreak. Currently placing added strain on local paramedics.
This has put increased pressure on our paramedics, particularly on the northwest. They've been required to transport patients longer distances with the hospitals in the northwest not receiving patients.
The chopper here from Queensland for the next 12 months, part of extra support to assist those on the front line.
We are recruiting more paramedics. We have engaged more aero support for them to ensure that we have aeromedical support deployed.
Rebecca Main, 7 Tasmania News.
New figures have revealed a sharp drop in gambling on poker machines in Tasmania following the shutdown of pubs and clubs. Poker machine expenditure dropped $5 million in March to a little over $9 million in total. Tough restrictions for pubs and clubs came into force on the 23rd of March, contributing to the strong decline. Tasmania has 3,500 poker machines across hotels, clubs, casinos and the Spirit of Tasmania ferries. Well, helplines are reporting an increase in callers seeking support for mental health. Now, there's a new way for Tasmanians to reach out, with Lifeline launching a dedicated call centre for locals to keep up with demand.
Answering a simple phone call that could make a world of difference. This new Lifeline centre opening today just for Tasmanians affected by the COVID-19 crisis.
Our whole world has turned upside down and we're living in a new normal. So it's for people who need emotional and practical support throughout this time.
Helplines are reporting rising number of callers as community members continue to feel pressure on their mental health.
People can experience what we call situational or psychological distress, and that can lead to anxiety and fear. It can lead to a loss of hope for the future, and it can lead to symptoms like depression.
Other support services are also seeing an increase in demand.
There are people who were in work who are no longer in work. What it means is we've got people coming forward to get support from Anglicare who wouldn't have thought they would ever have to be an Anglicare client. We're pleased that we're here for them.
This call centre taking just 4 weeks to quickly set up, with the unique 12-month initiative run by a team of around 40 local call staff, available to lend a hand 7 days a week.
If you've never reached out for support before, but you are feeling really anxious, afraid, or you just need someone to speak to, pick up the phone and call us. We're on the other end of the phone, ready to help you.
Anyone in need of help is urged to contact a Tasmanian Lifeline. Rebecca Main, 7 Tasmania News.
The final piece of a gigantic wind farm puzzle has safely made its way from Burnie to Granville Harbour. Over 18 weeks, heavy-duty drivers delivered more than 370 oversized loads to the wind farm site near Zeehan. The loads weighed nearly 150 tonne and drivers needed some serious skill to navigate the West Coast's winding roads.
As much as we've tried to do those at times that don't interfere with anyone else, we are aware that there are people who've been impacted, and we want to thank each one of you for your effort and your patience.
2/3 of the turbines are now installed at the Granville Harbour site, which is expected to be fully up and running in August. The project will produce enough energy to power 46,000 homes. And the weather was a good reason for many Tasmanians to stay home in recent weeks. It was our wettest April since 1960, with rainfall 68% above average. The southwest and northeast had totals more than 100 millimetres above average. The Bureau of Meteorology reports our daytime temperatures were generally cooler than average. Doctors are worried Tasmanians are putting their health at risk following a plunge in visits to GPs. One practice says appointments have nearly halved. Now a new campaign is aiming to prevent a backlog of patients once the pandemic ends.
Have you put off or missed any medical appointments during isolation?
According to doctors, lots of us have. Hobart's General Practice Plus says visits have fallen by 40% in the past month.
All those niggling complaints that people are putting off can certainly turn into something much more serious. Getting on top of things nice and early is the way that general practitioners like to work.
Predicting a post-pandemic pile-up of appointments, Dr Abby Rundle says those needing treatment shouldn't feel guilty about seeking care.
In a couple of months' time, if everyone's presenting with these problems, it's going to, have waiting lists of weeks to see a GP, whereas at the moment you can certainly get an appointment.
I think part of that is about not trying to overload their health practitioners and not trying to be a nuisance.
Primary Health Tasmania is partnering with General Practice Plus for the campaign. It says putting off appointments for some conditions could add weeks to the recovery.
What we're trying to do is actually ensure that the community is able to and aware of the fact that their healthcare practitioners are there for them.
The campaign is also trying to reassure Tasmanians strict hygiene measures are in place to protect patients, all part of restoring confidence in GPs at a time of great change to our routines.
Even those niggling musculoskeletal conditions that people might be picking up now that they're doing a bit more exercise, things like illnesses with children, funny rashes, there can be so many things that the sooner we see it, we can quite often get on top of things within a week or so and get people healed up.
Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
A surprise package for the Tasmanian Tigers and Hobart Hurricanes has been recognised by Cricket Tasmania. Paceman Nathan Ellis took out the Scott Mason Captain's Award after bursting onto the scene with a 5-wicket haul for the Tigers before becoming a dependable finisher in the Big Bash.
My mum recorded a few of the games that I haven't been able to watch, so I've sort of a little bit of that, and to watch that, it just feels like a bit of a dream. But yeah, so stoked to look back on it all.
All-rounder Bo Webster has received the Chairman's Award, while Maisie Gibson has been recognised as Female Player of the Year.
Good evening. A westerly airstream blew a few showers across the state today. Hobart and Burnie 15, Launceston 13 and Devonport 14 degrees. 15 was the high, also recorded by Smithton, Friendly Beaches, Grove and Ouse. Low Head and St Helens 14, King Island and Strawn 13, Flinders Island 11, Lyawini the low overnight -3. Now here's the low-level cloud moving over us today. Best rainfall to 3 p.m. was also at Flinders Island, 11 millimetres. The extended frontal cloud band moved over the Tasman Sea. A cold air mass has now moved in to fill that space over Tasmania and the southeast mainland. More low cloud over the Bight, just a little high cloud over northern parts. The deep low will approach Tasmania tomorrow before moving off to the southeast as a high moves over the Bight. Now, this pattern will produce a vigorous southwesterly airstream over our region. Winds up to 45 knots and even 50 knots over the west, swells to 7 metres. We have myriad warnings for tomorrow. A severe weather warning for damaging winds for most of the state, damaging surf the far south, southeast and King Island as well. A storm force warning from southeast Cape to Sandy Cape. Gale warning for remaining coastal waters in the Central Plateau Lakes. Also a warning to sheep graziers for all of the state except the northeast. A flood watch for the Huon catchment. Plenty happening. Showers and windy for Hobart, 11, just 8 for Medina, same for Oatlands, 8 degrees. Cold. Launceston, a morning shower or two, 14 the top, 12 for Devonport, winds easing later. A shower or two, maybe some snow for Lyawini, a top of 2. Burnie, showers and very windy, 11 the high, 10 for Strawn, showers and very windy for Marrawar. And for St Helens tomorrow, a top of 15 degrees, a shower or two, showers easing from Swansea, 13 the high, just 11 for Orford. On Sunday, fine apart from showers over the west, far south and southeast. Another shower over the west and far south on Monday. Fine on Tuesday apart from a shower over the west. Sunny and 27 in Perth tomorrow. Change from here. A shower for Adelaide, a cold showery day for Melbourne. Canberra back into double figures and sunny for Sydney and Brisbane. Showery over Hobart, it's 11 right now, 11 degrees in Launceston with showers about and 12 degrees in Devonport. Looks like winter has arrived 1 month early, Kim. Very wild and woolly out there this evening.
It is. You will need your woolly jumper. And speaking of woolly, if you're having trouble sleeping, why don't you try counting sheep in the Central Highlands? This vision of thousands of merinos making the journey through Myena was captured by the Great Lake Hotel. The flock clearly flouting social distancing rules as they were put through a woolly workout shuffling down the road. Their coats certainly came in handy. The area hit a top of just 6 degrees today and is expected to drop below 0 tonight. And that's all your news for now. I'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us. Good night.